Gen Z um, woke up and started looking at the world and saw the problems and stuff. And instead of just being angry or just being kind of angsty and sarcastic, um, they look at it with a sense of apathy, and by that it's a sense of hopelessness. They see the world around them. They look at the news that's on their phone. They look at the stories they see on social media. They look at the job market. They feel overwhelmed.
Wow. Okay. So here we are in the next session of this series, and I have had so much joy in spending time with the generation that's after me. Okay. So I'm an Xer and Jeff Elsbury. You,
Yes, yes,
yes,
ma'am.
you are a millennial. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, how exciting. I love talking to millennials just because you guys are after me, but before Gen Z. And I'm really trying to lean in and learn more about the Gen Z. So let's have this conversation today. You and I had a conversation the other day talking about some things, and I was like, oh, wow, this is great. This is good. And we need to unpack more of this for a greater audience. So let me take a few minutes and introduce you and then we'll get started. So, everybody, welcome. Welcome to Jeff. Jeff, thank you. Thank you for participating in this with me. I know that you've been a Kansan native for some while, right? And you moved to Wichita
Yeah.
back in 2005.
Yep.
And you've been in the business, in the people business, specifically with people ever since. And yes, as a hairstylist, um, my hairstylist. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. I
I
hope,
love your hair color. It's so.
of course you do. Of course you do. Oh my gosh. For you people out there, you have two redheads right here. This is gonna
Yep.
be
Yep.
dynamic. So anyway, okay. So you started out in vocational ministry though, right? And then
Yes.
you became a hairstylist. So you spent
Yes.
what, 16 years? You've spent
Hmm.
the last 16 years, and 10 of those years you've worked for yourself, which I want to talk a little bit about that when we get into it, because being an entrepreneur, that's a deal in and of itself, right?
Yes.
And so along the way, though, I mean, you have developed this skill with the Enneagram,
Hmm.
and you've done some studies on that, some classes on that, and it's amazing how you do that with people in the chair. I love it because you will like start to frame up people and know how to adapt your, conversation or how you respond to that particular Enneagram type. I see you do it constantly and it's amazing. So, okay, so you've been married to Amanda, wow, for 17 years, which is
Yes.
incredible. And she's a lovely woman with an amazing skill of her own. I mean, she just recently wrote a book and in regards to grief, and it touched my heart because she wrote it at a time to where I was going through some things as well. And
Yeah.
so,
I remember
yes,
that.
so Amanda's book, yes. Everybody, we should probably drop the link below to Amanda's book and just kind of, give her a little bit of a prompt as well. But and yes, and so you've shared life with a few pets and
Mhm.
you've gone through the process of transitioning some of those pets too, which is really tough. That's a really
Yeah.
tough thing to go
Yeah.
through sometimes. And so yeah, so I just wanted to share a little bit about you. And I know that you're driven by connecting with people, having real conversations, sharing stories, and just you're always growing. You're always growing and changing and always thinking about a new thing. So, what did I miss? What did I not share about you?
I'm a pretty complex human being, like most people are.
Yeah.
But no, I think you hit a lot of the high points for the conversation we're going to have today. Um, my time in vocational ministry was primarily youth ministry, and I went to college for that, and then got into hair almost immediately after finishing my degree. And the differences between the two vocations are pretty minimal when it looks. when you look at like what I valued from them the most, which was human connection,
Mm,
coming alongside people in whatever years we seem to have on this earth, and just trying to hold space for people, create the best environment so that we can get to know each other, understand each other. And then part of that holding space is giving people a place to be heard and a place to express their own hurts and pains. Um, and then also through all of that, I feel like we create a really good environment to live our lives together and then sometimes even speak and give each other um, guidance and words and insights so that we can all grow together.
yeah.
And I'm 38 as of today when we're recording this, and my years, 17 years of marriage, um, the friends and family that I have, and all these important connections, I wouldn't have the abundance that I'm blessed to have um, if I didn't spend hours and hours every week trying to research and understand and put into practice like this um, this thing that I care so much about, which is how do we connect together? How do we see each other? How do we understand and empower each other to be the most whole we can be? So
That's so beautiful. That's so great. And oh my gosh, when when we talked about you being married for 17 years, I was like, "Oh my, wow, that's awesome."
yeah,
I mean, that's a good amount of time. So you guys got married when you were younger,
yes,
and traditionally people don't get married at that age. They're now
yeah,
waiting later and later. But there's a lot of benefits to that, I think. And you
mhm,
guys, have like grown together a lot and it's beautiful. So yeah. So okay, so when I was in the chair the other day, I love those times, Jeff. Those times are just precious for me because there's a lot of growth that does happen but in the conversation and so for those of you guys out there that are watching, if you have a good hairstylist and you're having some good growth conversations, you better tip them well. let me just let me just say that because it's an added bonus. It really is. Because I always walk away from not only getting my hair refreshed, but also a refreshing in my soul, if you will. I mean, it's like my soul is watered and hydrated because of the conversation. Because I get to go away and like think about what did we just talk about? And even before I get there, I mean, I've come long enough to where I know that things are going to sync up because of what I'm carrying and what you're carrying. And it's almost like I'll ask a question or you'll ask the question, so how's your day going? Or how's your week been, Rose? And then me and my non-fluff, question or comment or whatever, it just seems to cause us to go into this whole dynamic conversation. And that's what I so appreciate about sitting in your chair. Because you're willing to go there. You're willing to have, some of those deeper conversations and that's what I mean
yeah.
by like, if you've got a great hairstylist that doesn't just do your hair, but can really connect with you. I mean, come on, Jeff, that's an added benefit for me. So thank you.
Well, and often I do try to open conversations with the question like, what's on your mind, what's on your heart, or what's holding your attention right now.
Yeah.
After I make sure you're not already crying or something like that, because some people walk in the salon already in a pretty hard place, and
Oh,
we're gonna get there no matter what. So,
wow.
um,
Wow.
but yeah, yeah.
That's
So
great.
we
That's,
have wonderful conversations, and I always look forward to seeing you.
yeah, well, thank you. So the last conversation led me to frame up some questions and to hop in and have this conversation. And one of the things that we were talking about was that led me to this question. When you look at Gen Z and the younger millennials, um, What do you see as a defining emotional tone of this generation, and why do you think apathy is so common? And the reason why I threw apathy in there is because that was a big word that, we used or we talked about in our conversation. So if you don't mind, let's start with that question.
Yeah. So you're saying looking at Gen Z and this undertone of apathy that seems
Yeah.
to be kind of free flowing.
Yeah.
Um, I brought up the word apathy when we were talking about Gen Z, not because um, I look at them all the time and I just see, wow, look at that apathetic person. But as I've been trying to look at generations and look at, boomer generation, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z, these are all adults for the most part, or some of the Gen Z are still teenagers, but for the most part, we're functioning adults or about to be functioning adults living in relationship with each other. Um, And if you were to look up like the emotional background of Gen X had a strong when they would look at the world around them and the culture they were living in. Gen X tend to have like an undertone of anger with things that they thought weren't going well. Millennials then kind of brought to that anger more of like a sarcasm. Um, more like angsty sarcasm, that whole gothic kid, thing. And then Gen Z um, woke up and started looking at the world and saw the problems and stuff. And instead of just being angry or just being kind of angsty and sarcastic, um, they look at it with a sense of apathy, and by that it's a sense of hopelessness. They see the world around them, they look at the news that's on their phone, they look at the stories they see on social media, they look at the job market, they look at um, whatever it is they're inputting into their lives and into their minds. They feel overwhelmed,
Mhm.
um, and uh, the the concern about apathy is that if you were to look at there's this thing called the emotional spiral. The
Mhm.
highest level of that when you're ascending the emotional spiral would be like compassion, empathy, forgiveness, abundance, things like that. But as you descend down this emotional spiral, you get into fear, hatred,
Yes.
victimhood, sorrow. But at the lowest level of that emotional spiral is apathy,
Mm.
um, and resignation.
Yeah.
Apathy and resignation are below anger and fear. And the lowest level energy, if you were to look at like molecules and stuff, when energy is at its lowest, it has the least movement.
Hmm.
Um, and and if you want to improve your life in some way, um, and you notice things are going well, you'll notice that maybe I'm kind of angry about it, and then maybe I'm a bit resigned about my anger. But if you don't do something to correct the course of your life and take action to make it better, eventually you're going to get um, to apathy. And
Yes.
apathy has almost no movement. And so we have a generation, if we're saying they're defined by apathy, we have a generation that's not even really sure that they should get out of bed in the morning, that they should apply for jobs, that they should get driver's license, that they should
Yeah.
pursue wisdom
Yes.
systems, religious systems, spiritual systems thing. Uh, the inward focus is massive, and the outward focus just the inward focus is massive and seems overwhelmed, and the amount of mental health issues and diagnoses are way up, and the look out of their eyes into the world, that sense of overwhelm and hopelessness, and like why even try.
Hmm.
So it's actually better, from a psychological view, to be angry, because that anger is at least moving. That anger is going to rise up and maybe go,
Hmm.
you know, flip over a table, or go, call out your boss or your manager and be like, something's got to be better, whatever it's going to be. Like, if you can't get out of bed, you're not going to change your world. But at least
Yeah.
if you're angry and moving, maybe you'll go work out. Maybe you'll go do whatever it is. It's going to move, and then hopefully you can keep going up that emotional spiral and get to hopefulness, to get to responsibility, and yeah, eventually like the higher level emotions. But um,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's really good. Yeah, so you started with the Gen X and then you went to millennials and then you went to Zs. And you were saying that Gen X mainly, there was this emotion of anger that seemed to be prevalent there. Do you have an opinion about boomers?
The boomers, from what I was looking at with generational stuff, the boomers, you know, it's not a perfect summary because every generation
Yeah,
faces issues and
right.
complex difficulties. But the boomers, grew up in a world post World War II. Economic growth was happening. Corporations were building up. Pensions were growing. Career paths were like, uh, get a skill, get a job,
Yeah,
work your way up, retire at this age,
yeah.
hang out in your boat, have your
Right.
house, like, and things seemed like they were pretty secure and predictable. Of like, hey, we're gonna,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
um, and so there was a lot more trust in these institutions because boomers were kind of a big part of helping build the we live in America, live in Kansas, like this America, this Kansas Midwest America that we see today, like the boomers were a huge part of that. And I don't mean that from a blame thing. I'm just saying from like a
Yeah.
looking at life, like, um, yeah, the movers and shakers that are happening right now are boomers and Gen X. But yeah, as Gen X is moving into more powerful roles of leadership or are holding those roles and then getting into, you know, kind of older generation stuff, like, yeah, we watch culture shifting more and more again. But
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's really interesting from my perspective as a Gen Xer. It's interesting to have watched, the iterations of change, if you will, and especially after COVID, and how things, there was a massive change in how COVID affected everybody, in my opinion. And so, but yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, well, you can't let a good plague go to waste. What, how can we,
yeah.
how can we take this and spiral up
Hmm.
versus, sit there and continue to talk about, how bad it was and it did this and it did that. Well, look, I mean, right now we're on Zoom. Think about what COVID did for Zoom. I mean, wow,
Yeah.
it's absolutely amazing. And so when I think about that, and some of the things that we talked about, you said anger, jealousy, or envy can actually be useful emotions if we use them.
Hmm.
So how can somebody practically turn those feelings into growth instead of self-destruction? And because with COVID, a lot of people will have a tendency to look at, COVID as a negative versus as a, well, okay, yeah, we went through it. We're going to go through things, but look what it did for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I mean by you don't want to take a good plague and waste it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So uh our emotions give insight into our internal world. If I'm feeling happy, then or joyful or grateful, it's a really good practice to sit and write down like, why am I joyful and grateful and feeling content? Because the more that I recognize where those emotions come from, the more that my gratefulness might increase, the more that I might be able to lean into those aspects of life and create more gratefulness and more joy, more happiness. The same goes for uh, the what are called more often negative emotions: jealousy, envy, anger, fear. Um, when we're experiencing negative emotions, I think we have just as much, if not more, of an importance in self-reflection. Um, Emotions are there to teach us something. And so if you are experiencing emotions, and you have a reflection practice, a mindfulness practice, something that gets you to slow down and really look at and identify what's going on, I can look at the jealousy that I might be experiencing or the envy, depending on which one is happening, and say it's my friend Bob just got a new house, and he got that house because like he got a raise at work or got a really good bonus, and so he could put some more money down on it. And I'm like, wow, like, really, I love the space, man. He's gonna be able to do stuff with that space. Like, I don't know that Bob works as hard as I do, man. I think I deserve that too. And then how do I get that? And as we look at like, oh man, like I'm experiencing some envy of what Bob has in this new house and some jealousy. I can take that in a downward spiral and I can be like, oh, there's that negative emotion.
Yeah,
I'm going to feed that. Bob doesn't deserve this. Bob's not nearly as hard of a worker as me. Bob gets handed everything. Why does God love Bob and not me? Like,
yeah,
what did I do wrong? Like, or, and that's not a bad reflection to have, but finish the reflection and then be like, okay, let's be honest. Let's look at what's really happening with this emotion. This emotion is trying to tell me that I have a desire that is not currently being met. I might even have a need that's not currently being met.
yeah,
I would like to have some of what Bob is experiencing right
right,
now. Um, and and I can finish that train of thought and be like, well, what is it about what Bob just got that I would like? And
yeah,
then I can use mindfulness practice and create some real dreams. And with real dreams, then I can follow that through to be like, well, who are some people I can talk to get some practical steps, or what can I look up online to give me some practical steps for like
for
how
sure.
I could move towards getting those things. Um, but I don't I think it's wrong to call happiness and joy good emotions and anger and jealousy bad emotions, because
Yeah.
they're just emotions. They're innocent little creatures. They're all there to teach us and show us something.
Hmm.
But are we showing up to learn
Hmm.
from
Oh,
what's going
that's so good. That is
on?
so, yeah, go
And
ahead.
it's really hard to do that if we're not in relationship with other people that we have real conversations with, and if we don't have some kind of reflective mindfulness presence practice, something that keeps us daily, if possible, in touch with everything that's happening
Yeah,
within us.
yeah. That is so good because, for me, I like to tap into the older generation. I am so fortunate to have in my treasury, if you will, I'll call it my
Yeah,
treasury, some amazing people that have gone before me. They have so much wisdom. They carry so much wisdom in certain areas. Now, I will say though too, I worked to build those relationships. I worked to seek out those relationships because I knew that there was a gap in what my knowledge base was. I knew that there were things that I didn't know and I didn't understand. And when I was younger, um, now at my age, it can be somebody younger or it can be somebody older, my same age, whatever. But when I was younger, because I was, lesser in my life experiences, I always looked for somebody that was older, obviously. And I was looking for somebody that had character, integrity, and seemed to have the skill set that I was looking for, that I was looking to grow in because it was a gap for me and I knew that I needed to get that skill set and I needed to learn that so I could continue to grow. Now,
yes,
it was up to me to honor those relationships, and to continue to develop those relationships. Now, I mean, there's been a couple along the way to where I was like, yeah, that served well for a season, and it was helpful, but then it was time for me to move on. And but wow, there's been some relationships that I've had for years and they're in my treasury and I
yeah,
I honor that relationship, I guard that relationship, and I'm not just going to hand that relationship out to anybody because they're
Yes.
going to, I mean, they're going to have to like show to me, you know what I'm saying, that they're going, if I do this introduction, that they're going to treat my, cultivated relationship with one of my mentors well.
Yeah.
And so what does that look like? Well, that means that you show up properly, and that means that you've done your homework, and that also means that you're going to do your follow through.
Yeah.
And that follow through is, it's a big deal. If not, they could be perceived as, or they could get the perception that you're just wasting their time. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's what
Yeah.
happens. But like in your situation, you were a youth pastor, and so you spent a lot of time with the younger generation, and so yeah. So in that space, what would you say is well, I've got a couple things going on in my head here. If you could speak directly to the younger generation and the older generation, your youth group kids, and then my age group or beyond, um what would you say about honoring each other and taking ownership for their choices?
Yeah. Um, so a lot of the breakdown in relationship between generations, especially if you're jumping two generations, because like as a millennial, I could probably relate a little more easily to Gen Z, who's the generation right after me, than I can then Gen Z might relate to Gen X, which would be your generation, Rose, or the Boomer generation, because the further we separate the generation, these are 15 to 20-year increments. If I was like kind of estimating properly. The generations are really split up because of these big switches in culture, in technology, and access to information and workflow, and the mindset where people are starting. And so you have Gen Z that are training and entering into job market stuff, or entering into um, areas of interest, or religious practice, or organizations that are humanitarian minded, or good, socially minded, and stuff. But they want to be involved in something that's going to involve people of an older generation. Um, and these institutions and organizations, they have people that are boomer or even older, and Gen X, that are separated in this age gap, in this understanding gap. And um, the the divide that happens there is a lot of young people look up the path of the generations, and they blame the older generations for the world that is currently happening. um, and a lot of the older generation look down on this youngest generation coming in, and they think that um, these kids are soft, or like they're too idealistic, or they're so opinionated, but there's no rubber doesn't meet the road, like they haven't even had to live in all of this. And so there's real, not just disconnect, but disrespect that flows both ways. And so if we want to bridge a gap in understanding, then we need to bridge the gap with communication. um, so I was kind of researching on this a little bit, because there are studies being done into, what might be a real solid path to start bringing generations back together. And one of these sources of information was really pointing towards mentorship, the
Mhm.
importance of getting back into like this apprenticeship or mentorship relationship. And that's not even just within like jobs and trades, but that's within every relationship. That's within me relating to my father, who is a boomer, and me relating to my nieces and nephews, who are more like Gen. alpha. Um, this mutual respect and this desire to communicate and um, moving forward in communication involves uh, developing and really working on skills that promote listening, um, and transparency. And transparency being like when you come together to communicate and to
Mhm.
try to have understanding with each other, um, when you're listening, what you're listening for and what needs to be communicated when you're talking is, detailing the intentions of the relationship, the intentions of the conversation, your goals, clear expectations,
Mhm.
consequences, whether those are good or negative consequences, for uh, if these expectations are met or not. But often, what happens before people even are willing to enter into conversation, like that space isn't even reached because there's no respect or internal value given
Yes.
to other generations. So if we're going to start somewhere, um, I think we choose our belief, and I choose to believe that our world can be more whole, and I choose to believe in an optimistic future. And to do that, I believe that relationships and building stronger relationships is the path to get us there. So because of all of that, I'm like, having the best communication and conflict resolution skills
Yeah.
possible so that we can start bridging these gaps is extremely valuable.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
answer some of your question?
Yeah, yeah, it really does. Because for me, the way I've learned, quite a bit from the boomers,
Hmm.
because they're brilliant and they knew how to grind. I mean, they
Yeah,
just do,
yeah,
And so I've learned a lot from them. And so then when I see the millennials and I get excited about the heart of the millennials, and then when I look at Gen Z and I'm like, these, okay, so in my language, these kids are brilliant too. Like they have
yes,
like all this knowledge of how to, do things quicker. They know how to hack things, okay, from my
yeah, yeah,
perspective. And
yeah,
so I get like these great ideas, and I'm like, you guys, we need to blah 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 blah.
yeah,
And so I'm like, go get me, somebody go get me a millennial and a Gen Z,
yeah,
because of the energy and the excitement and that comes from them now, from those two groups especially. And then what that says to me is, or the next thing that I need to be looking at from there is, okay, now I need to help impart my wisdom, and how to, how to bring this thing into play and bring it forward. And so this is where, because of the wisdom that I mean, the wisdom that I can carry from learning about things for years, about doing a certain thing, there's the millennials and the Gen Zs that can come in and do it quicker, faster, better, whatever. But there's also that respect. I respect, their heart and the way that they are able to hack things, and this and that. And then now I need the respect of like, no, I need you to listen, because here's what I'm thinking that we need to pay attention to. Full well being open to hear, what they have to say, and let's try an experiment. You see what I'm
yeah,
saying? And so,
yes,
yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
I was gonna say like, so yeah, you have older generations that have life experience,
Yeah,
um, and wisdom. No matter what, life experience means that you've had to do real life stuff over and over again, and you've
right.
had failures and
Yeah,
successes. Everyone has had some successes because they're still breathing if you've lived to be older. So
yeah,
there's always some wisdom embodied there. Younger generations, they have new eyes for the world. They
right.
see beauty and they see pain, and so this idealism is not a it, it's not it it is a burden, but it doesn't have to be a curse. This idealism can be turned into a tool, and the energy that backs youth um, can bring this fresh perspective and this idealism and this ability to use new technology and new
Yeah.
data and information that has helped us unlock like what's going on in the human mind and in the human heart. How do we use all of this new stuff that's happening out here? um, so high energy, high idealism,
Yes.
wisdom, and experience, but
Powerful.
separation. But these are two powerful things. And
Yes.
so if we get respect to flow both ways, then
Right.
communication can really happen. So in your situation where you're sitting down with younger people and you're like, hey, I have some wisdom I'd really like to download to you. Um, so I'll hop back to this idea of transparency. Like if someone's going to be in relationship with me or you and they're younger, um, and we're like, okay, we have a task to go after and to achieve. So um, I'm older, I have some more experience. I'm just laying out basics here. I have some wisdom to bring into this, and clearly you believe I have some wisdom to bring into this because you're here listening to me and you're a part of this organization. And
Yeah.
so I want to pass on some stuff to you. And, um, you know, speaking as clearly as you can about the goals of whatever this task is that you're going to go after and the ways that you see that these different young people could be you see their different skills, like taking time to really point out and see the different skills that they're bringing to the table, and then seeing where they might plug in and
Yeah.
offering that direction, offering like possible insight into the pitfalls that they might run into, the roadblocks they might run into. And then after your message and your wisdom and your insight has been downloaded to them through talking with them, really, um, in that situation, their respect is going to come from listening,
Hmm.
listening to the wisdom, listening to the goals, listening to all this stuff. And then when you already said this, but when now you say, okay, I've spoken, now I want to hear your perspective. You pass the feeling stick or whatever you want to call it over, and then you sit back and you listen to
Hmm.
this powerful, energetic idealism like that
Yeah.
is gonna take your ideas and offer a fresh set of eyes and perspective. And then they say, hey, I hear what you say about like how you would like to plug me in. I think I'd be really good at that. Or here's my concerns. If you really want me to do that, I don't know if I'm really up to the task. And so as you talk to through that, and then they have a chance to ask questions and get clarification, you can re-enter and have this nice back and forth. You could sit down and have further meetings about if the younger generation has concerns about their ability to follow through. You can have plans of action,
Yeah. Yeah.
step programs, check-ins, like
Sure.
accountability, all this stuff. But by listening and giving them a chance to ask questions, like you've shown respect to them. And then
Mhm.
the last part that I'll say before I stop again here is that there is an importance, about this accountability thing that you talked about, and this also, accountability and responsibility. You, as being the older person, bringing more wisdom and holding a space of accountability and responsibility that's higher than the young people.
Hmm.
When push comes to shove, if the bricks start falling, you're covering them, like
Hmm.
they're under you, and that's going to hit you, and then you'll decide how those consequences should
Yeah.
rightfully fall to them. But um there needs to be, um there needs to be an understanding that, like, if we go forward in this task working together, younger and older generations, like older generation, I am holding a position of responsibility. And
Hmm.
so you need I'm going to hold you accountable, and you need to uphold your role in this, and
Yeah.
I will take accountability and uphold my role in this. And then you might have to define like what that accountability looks like, what that responsibility looks like, what proper communication is, what proper questioning is, like how that can be done respectfully and everything. But at the end of the day, anyone who holds a position of authority and responsibility above
Yeah.
someone else, um, we need to honor that, um,
Yeah.
because when life happens, something we don't live in a perfect world, so something always falls, and it should fall onto the people that hold the most responsibility.
Yes.
And then there should be accountability if some of that is caused by the people below them.
Yeah.
And
And that's a really good point. That's a really good point, Jeff, because at the end of the day, if there's an audit that's going to happen, or if something, the legalities of a thing are going to, come into play, then yeah, me being the leader of an organization, I'm going to be the one that's going to be held holding the bag.
yeah.
And the hard part too is like with all of this stuff, like say for instance in the church, if you will, you were a
Mhm.
youth pastor, I mean,
Mhm.
you would get held, you would get left holding the bag on some things when you're
Yeah.
gonna have to answer for this kid's behavior the way they treated another kid,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. We
but
had a lock-in and someone started a
no.
fire. Jeff, what were you doing? It's not my fault. These
Ah,
crazy kids. Who let them in the church? Who organized the lock-in? Who is
right,
responsible for making sure there's enough adult
yeah,
supervision going on to keep an
exactly.
eye on things?
Yeah, it's a deal.
Like,
It's a real deal. And the thing is,
and
too, is there is expected, as a leader, you're expected to unconditionally love.
hmm,
But there should also be an expectation of unconditional love from, the people that are following, right? I mean, it's like unconditional love should go both ways, but sometimes that can get left out. So, but going back to, like, let's just say, for instance, my leadership position and wanting to, I want to say deploy or employ or that sort of thing with the next generations. Yeah, I mean, there's things that, that I've learned along the way that, because I didn't do so well in one area, I learned from the consequences of it. So,
yeah,
I mean, there's wisdom that comes with that, or there's things that when I went at it again, it's like, okay, I learned better this time. And so,
yeah,
there's some wisdom that I can bring to the table. And if I'm going to get left holding the bag, or if I'm going to be the one that they're going to come after, for the most part, we're going to design it this way. But depending on your level of skill in it, then I will collaborate with you and give you more ownership or decision rights based on your level of skill. If it's not your first rodeo and you've done it a couple of times, guess what? I'll oversee it. You lead it, I'll oversee it, that
yeah,
sort of thing. But if it's your
yeah.
first rodeo, I'm going to have to help you get on that horse. And this is where I'm gonna need you to, I'm gonna need you to like have to, sit down and listen for a bit. But of course, absolutely. I always want to hear how the other person, thinks and what ideas they have, and because I want their input. I want them to feel like they're a part of the thing. And
Yeah,
and it's just a beautiful, beautiful process. And this is what I love about working with the next generations because I want to hear through their eyes and how they see a thing. So, yeah, I mean,
and with
yeah,
what you're saying, there's part of this research that is looking at the mentor and apprenticeship mentality stuff. One of the highest trends that they saw when they were researching and looking at like these exceptional individuals that are leaders or managers, like what is the core thing that they're really doing? It wasn't that they were always the most likable person or like soft and fuzzy and gave you hugs all the time, or it wasn't that they told the best jokes and always let you have time off when you wanted it. What they found was that these mentors that had great success and leaders that had great success with the people that were under them was they had high expectations and
Hmm.
high support. And in the high expectations, that means like when they gave responsibility to people below them, then um, if the task was done well,
Yeah.
they received good things. But if something fell apart and didn't go well, and it was directly caused by someone not being prepared or something like that, or not really doing their job well, then there was a real like let's come to the table and take them to task, like talk it through, hold them accountable, give them consequences, um, and and
Yeah.
this high expectation and high support means that also that those leaders were there and were available and were sacrificing sometimes efficiency to make sure that communication
Hmm.
and um, you know uh, yeah, that support was really there for however it was needed. And so this is really, really important that when we give responsibility to people, that we hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Because how else will someone who's part of this thing, organization, conference, whatever thing you're trying to make happen,
Yeah.
if someone is contributing to it, it will not feel important if they don't have some responsibility.
For
But if
sure.
they're
For
in
sure.
charge of the decorations and they decorate well and create a really great space, and
Yeah.
then they receive acknowledgement and honor for that, then they put their hands to something in the world
Right.
and they can look at it and be like, I did that.
Right. Exactly.
Like, and
Tribute.
then most
Show up
people
and
want to do
contribute.
more.
Hmm.
Yeah. Uh,
Exactly. Yes. And that's the beauty of it. Being in a
ownership.
community, an organization, whatever. It's like, what part do you play? And a lot of times I find to where, people in general, because, me coming from a corporate HR background and, now being in a leadership space in an organization, I've spent years talking to people and and hearing people say, yeah, I don't know what I'm good at, or I don't know what I'm supposed to do, or I don't know. They don't know them. And so I'm like, well, I've been watching you, and this is what I think. And
Yeah.
so what do you think about that? And also kind of going back to, like I developed a program called Dream Engineering to really
Mm,
help people unpack their vision, unpack their identity and their vision so that they can become more acquainted with who they are and what they like and what their vision is, what they want to do, and to contribute into the community or the organization or the workplace or whatever, that to be a part of a group of people and show up ready to contribute your part. Be
yeah.
you. Just
Yeah.
be you. And that's where I've seen where people have felt the most satisfaction. There's all kinds of other challenges around that, which I
Yeah.
know, but I'm willing to work through it with people, but I just need them to show up and be willing. You
Yeah.
know, like, okay, if I need to start out scrubbing the toilets or taking out the trash, I'll do that. And so
Yeah.
then when you see that heart in people, then you're like, oh my goodness, yes. And then you start to watch them, hear them, whatever, and you appreciate them being willing to, do those tasks that can be like sometimes menial, but they have to be done, right? And so anyway,
Well, we have if I was to look at apathy, if we're talking younger generation kind of taking on responsibility now, but feeling apathetic, like one of the ways that I have really found to be like an antidote for apathy, is to see and believe that no action that I do that is creating good or life or health, no action is too small.
yeah,
Um,
right.
uh, Idealism leads towards black and white thinking, and also since we live in a culture with so much social media and everything where people see things so big,
Yeah,
we lose sight of like the beauty of all the small. And it is no small thing. I went shopping yesterday and had to go to a number of stores. It's right before the holidays, and so it was crazy out there. But before I started walking into any of the stores, I sat in my car and I said, I'm going to be kind and compassionate. And I'm going to move slow, and I'm
Yes.
going to make eye contact, and I'm going to smile.
Yes.
Because all these people working in these stores are going to be way more stressed out than I am. And I went to like 6 stores. And yeah, it was chaotic in there, but I just went slow, and I gave people my patience, and when it was appropriate, like I said, hi, thank you. I made eye contact. I said, thank you so much for your help. I really appreciate you. I really hope you have a good day. I gave him a smile. Um, and and I got home and I told my wife about this because like I felt a shift in the energy everywhere that I went. And it wasn't like I'm some great thing. It is like I'm going to do a really small thing that's going to have a big impact.
Yeah, that's
Um, and nothing that we do is too small. No amount of intentionality in creating life and light in this world of bringing order to chaos, like none of it is too small. And so young generation idealism, they want to fix broken systems. And they think we just have to tear down all the big systems and just start over. And
mm,
some things might get torn down and some things might start over. I don't know. That's possible. I don't see them all falling apart right now today on this Sunday. I do see, though, that I'm awake and I'm living in this world. And what I see that I can do is I can do a whole lot of small things that are
mhm.
going to move that needle, to be a little more loving, a little more compassionate, a little more present. Um, and I think that's infectious to people.
Yeah,
And I think that it passes from one to the next. And I'm a little bit more light
yes.
is exponential, like the impact that that has. And so I would say to young generation, scrubbing the toilets to help with an event so that people that walk in during breaks are like, ah, this is a good respite, like I can take care of business and get my hands clean. There's supplies in here that I need, and then I can efficiently get back out and listen to the speaker again or whoever. Like
Yes.
that wouldn't happen without someone to
Right.
keep that space clean and keep it stocked. You did something valuable.
Yeah.
Be, yeah. So nothing's too small.
Beautiful. Or exactly, nothing is too small. And if we all in a community come together and do our small parts, you know, and all of those droplets make an
Yeah.
ocean. And so
Yeah.
I love it. Jeff, it's been a treat as usual having this conversation with you and just hearing your thoughts and your wisdom,
Yeah.
from being, I mean, thank you for being willing to share your thoughts, because coming from a space of being a youth pastor and deciding to do that and then shifting into becoming a hairstylist and getting down into from the community down into the one-on-one, each person in the chair every day throughout the week, and just imparting who you are. Thank you. Thank you.
Heroes.
So, yep. So I will see you soon in the chair for our next conversation.
Absolutely. I will be there. I will be there.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rose. I look forward to talking to you again here soon.
All right. Thanks.